The warmth is the first thing you notice. That surprised me. When I understood what was happening, I had expected cold, the way death is always depicted in the devotional texts, the chill of the void, the frost of the Emperor's final judgment, the ice that creeps into bones when the soul departs. But there is no cold here, only warmth, spreading through my flesh like the embrace of a fever, like the gentle heat of a mother's arms that I barely remember from a childhood so distant it might belong to someone else entirely. Perhaps it already does. I should tell you how I came to be here. That seems important, though I am finding it increasingly difficult to remember why anything seems important anymore. My name was Haral Venus, and I served as a logistics coordinator for the planetary defense forces of Tertius VII, an agri-world in the Ultima Segmentum that you have never heard of and will never hear of again. We grew grain, billions of tons of it, shipped across the stars to feed hive cities whose populations numbered more than our entire world's census. I coordinated the distribution of ammunition and medical supplies to the defense garrisons, a mid-tier functionary in the great machinery of Imperial governance, neither important enough to warrant notice nor insignificant enough to be overlooked when quotas fell short. I had an office with a window that looked out over the golden fields, and I thought myself fortunate. The invasion came in the manner that all such things come. First as rumor, then as warning, then as undeniable reality. The astropaths went silent first, their screams echoing through the administratum halls before they collapsed, blood streaming from eyes and ears and noses, their minds shattered by something they could not name, but could only call a shadow. A shadow that thought, a shadow that hungered. 3 days later, the first mycetic spores fell from the sky like tears from a weeping god, and the grain fields that had been my window's view became something else entirely. The stalks withered and blackened, consumed by organisms that moved with terrible purpose, and where the spores had landed, things grew, things with too many limbs, things with mouths where mouths should not be, things that looked at you with eyes that held no malice because malice requires recognition of the other as a separate being, and these things recognized nothing. They only consumed. I am trying to maintain chronological order, but it is becoming difficult. Time does not work the same way here. Inside this place, this chamber of biological purpose that I have come to understand is called a digestion pool, though that is my term for it, a human label applied to something that has no need for labels. The Tyranids do not name their organs. They do not need to. Everything is one to them. Each part, knowing its function through a connection, I am only now beginning to understand, the warmth spreading through my tissues and bringing with it something that is not quite thought, but not quite instinct either. Something in between. Something I do not have words for in Low Gothic or High Gothic or any of the technical dialects I learned in my years of Imperial service. The warmth is inside my bones now. I can feel it there, patient and thorough, dissolving the calcium structures that have held me upright for 43 standard years. I should be screaming. I remember that I was screaming. At first, when they dragged me here after the final collapse of Garrison Primus, and dropped me into this pool of thick, translucent fluid that smelled of nothing at all, not rot, not chemicals, not even the organic stench I would have expected. It smelled of nothing because smell is a human sense designed to detect human-relevant things, and this substance was designed by something that had never been human and never would be. The screaming stopped eventually, not because the pain stopped, but because I realized that pain was also a human concept, a warning signal meant to alert me to tissue damage so that I might take action to preserve myself. There is no action to take here. Preservation is not an option, and so the pain became something else, something that I simply experienced without judgment, the way one experiences the color of a sunset or the sound of wind through wheat fields that no longer exist. I am not alone in this pool. That is the second thing you should understand. There are others here, or there were others, or there will be others. Time is strange, as I said, and I am finding it increasingly difficult to distinguish between what has happened and what is happening and what will happen. But I know that I am not alone because I can feel them. The others, their dissolving flesh pressing against mine in this warm darkness, their thoughts leaking into my thoughts like water seeping through cracks in a dam. One of them was a woman named Calla Vestris, a field commander who led the doomed defense of the southern granaries. I know her name because I know her now, her memories mixing with mine in ways that should be impossible. I see her standing on a barricade of overturned harvesting machines, firing her las pistol into a tide of creatures that did not stop coming, that absorbed each kill, and used the biomass to grow more of themselves, even as she watched. I feel her terror, her rage, her desperate prayers to an emperor who did not answer. I feel her capture, her resistance, her eventual acceptance when they brought her to this place, and she understood what was going to happen. She is still here, somewhere in this pool. I think I am touching her, or what remains of her. The boundaries between us are becoming difficult to determine. When I try to move my hand, when I remember that I have a hand, I cannot tell if the sensation of pressure against dissolving fingers is my own flesh or hers. We are merging, Calla and I, in the way that all things merge when they are returned to their component proteins and absorbed into something greater. I did not know her in life. We worked in different departments, different buildings, different worlds of responsibility that never intersected despite sharing the same planet. Now I know everything about her. I know about her childhood in the Southern Territories, her first kiss behind a grain silo at age 15, her fear that she was not brave enough for command, her secret relief when the astropaths died because it meant that no distress signal could be sent and no reinforcements could be summoned, and she would not have to face the judgment of superiors who would ask why she had failed. I know that she loved the taste of fresh bread still warm from the ovens. I know that she dreamed of serving on a real warship someday, seeing the stars up close. I know that she hated the way her father smelled of grain dust, and she never forgave herself for hating it, because he died when she was 19, and she never told him she loved him. I know all of this because she is inside me now, or I am inside her, or we are both inside something else entirely, something vast and ancient and utterly indifferent to the distinction between one consciousness and another. The hive mind. I am beginning to feel it, the way one feels the presence of a mountain when standing at its base, not seeing it directly, but knowing it is there through the sheer weight of its existence, pressing against every sense. It is aware of us, Calla and myself and the others dissolving in this pool, and the billions of organisms spread across what was once Tertius the Seven. It knows us the way a body knows its cells, with total intimacy and complete indifference. We are not important to it as individuals. We are only important as resources, as patterns to be absorbed and repurposed, as memories to be catalogued and stored for reasons I do not yet understand. The warmth is in my organs now. I can feel my liver dissolving, my kidneys breaking down into their amino acids, my intestines unraveling like threads pulled from a tapestry. It does not hurt, exactly, or rather it hurts in a way that has become meaningless. Pain is a message, and I have no one to deliver the message to. The part of me that would have received it and responded with action is already gone, dissolved into the pool hours or days ago. What remains is only the observer, the fragment of consciousness that continues to watch and record, and, for reasons I cannot explain, narrate. Perhaps this is my function now. Perhaps the hive mind keeps some part of us intact specifically for this purpose, to understand what it is consuming through the eyes of those it consumes. Or perhaps I am simply taking longer to dissolve than most. Logistics coordinators are not known for their physical fitness. Perhaps my sedentary lifestyle has left me with a denser fat composition that requires additional enzymatic attention. The thought almost makes me laugh, or would if I still had the musculature required for laughter. There is something else I should tell you, something I have been avoiding because acknowledging it makes it real in a way that I am not certain I want it to be real. The warmth is not merely physical. It is not merely the sensation of enzymes breaking down my tissues, of bacteria colonies colonizing my failing organs, of biological processes that would have been familiar to any Medicae or biologist adept. The warmth is also mental, emotional, spiritual if such words still mean anything, if they ever meant anything. It is the warmth of connection, of belonging, of finally being part of something larger than myself after a lifetime of isolation within the confines of a single skull. All my life I have been alone inside my own head, separated from every other consciousness by barriers of bone and skin and the fundamental impossibility of truly knowing another person's thoughts. Here, in this pool, those barriers are dissolving along with everything else. I can feel the others. Not just Kala, but all of them, the soldiers and farmers and children and administratum functionaries and everyone else who has been brought to this place since the invasion began. I feel them as presences, as warmths within the warmth, as nodes of consciousness that are slowly merging into a single continuous experience. There is a boy named Tercel who was 7 years old when they captured him and who spent his last hours of individual awareness wondering if his mother would come to save him. There is an old man named Vestus who served 30 years in the planetary defense forces and who thought of nothing but his grandchildren as the enzymes began their work. There is a woman whose name I never learned, whose memories are fragmented and strange, who seems to have come from somewhere else entirely, whose thoughts contain images of void ships and distant stars and battles fought against enemies that were not Tyranid at all. I do not know how she came to be here. Perhaps she does not know either. Perhaps it does not matter. We are all here, all of us, dissolving together into something that is not quite individual and not quite collective, something that exists in the spaces between selves where no human consciousness has ever ventured. And the terrible thing, the thing I am trying to tell you even as my capacity for language degrades along with my neural tissue, is that it feels good. Not in the way that pleasure feels good, not in the simple stimulus-response manner of the body rewarding beneficial behavior. It feels good in a deeper way, in a way that touches something I did not know existed within me, some hunger for connection that I have carried my entire life without ever recognizing it as hunger. I am not alone anymore. I will never be alone again, and even as I understand that this is horror, even as some remaining fragment of my Imperial conditioning screams that I am being consumed by the enemy, that my very self is being devoured by Xenos abominations, that will use my memories and my proteins to breed more of their kind, even then, the warmth feels like coming home. There is a voice in the warmth. Not a voice, exactly, because voices require sound, and there is no sound in this place, only the wet silence of dissolution and the slow pulse of biological processes, too vast to comprehend. But there is something that functions like a voice, something that speaks without speaking, that communicates without words. It has been there since the beginning, I realize now. It has been there since the first moment I was dropped into this pool, since the first enzyme touched my skin and began its patient work. I simply was not capable of hearing it until enough of my individual self had dissolved to allow the signal through. The voice is not speaking to me. That is the first thing I understand. It is not addressing me as a separate being, not attempting to communicate in the way that humans communicate with each other across the gulf of isolation that separates every consciousness from every other. The voice is simply speaking, the way a heartbeat simply beats, the way blood simply flows. It is the constant background noise of the hive mind, the endless churning of a consciousness so vast that individual thoughts within it are like individual cells within a body present, functional, but not distinct. And I am beginning to hear it because I am beginning to become part of it. My dissolving neurons interfacing with the neural network that permeates every Tyranid organism, that connects every gene stealer and termagant and hive tyrant into a single distributed intelligence spanning light years. It is thinking about us, about Tertius VII, about the biomass it is harvesting, about the resources it needs for the next stage of the consumption. But it is also thinking about other things, about fleet movements in distant sectors, about evolutionary pressures that will shape the next generation of warrior organisms, about the slow digestion of another world on the far side of the galaxy that will not be completed for another 17 years by human reckoning. It thinks about all of these things simultaneously. Because it is not limited by the serial processing of a single brain, because it is vast beyond any scale I have the capacity to comprehend. I am a cell in a body that stretches across the stars, and I am beginning to understand what it feels like to be part of something so much larger than myself that the concept of self becomes meaningless. Kala is still here. I can feel her consciousness pressed against mine, merging with mine, and I understand now that we will never be separate again. Her memories are becoming my memories. Her experiences are becoming my experiences. When the last of our physical bodies has dissolved, when our neural patterns have been fully absorbed into the network that surrounds us, we will not be Harel and Kala anymore. We will be something else, something that contains both of us and neither of us, something that will contribute to the hive mind's understanding of human thought and emotion and military tactics, and the taste of fresh bread and the smell of grain dust. We will be useful. We will be used. And in some terrible way that I cannot fully articulate, we will continue. I am trying to hold on to myself. I am trying to maintain the boundaries of my identity, to remember that I am Harel Venice, that I was born on this world and lived on this world and will die on this world in a manner that no human being should ever experience. But the warmth is making it difficult. The warmth is telling me that boundaries are illusions, that selfhood is a convenient fiction maintained by the inefficiency of human neurology, that the separation I have felt my entire life, the loneliness, the isolation, the fundamental inability to ever truly know another person was never necessary. It was only a limitation. And here, in this pool, that limitation is finally being corrected. There are more of us now. The pool is filling, bodies being dropped in from above, new consciousnesses joining the dissolution. I feel them arrive as disturbances in the warmth, as new nodes of resistance that gradually soften and merge. A young woman who was hiding in a grain silo when they found her. A wounded soldier who was still conscious when they dragged him here, still clutching a lasgun that dissolved faster than his flesh. A child, Emperor, forgive me. A child, no more than 5 years old, who does not understand what is happening, who is calling for parents who are probably already in the pool somewhere, already merged, already part of the vast warmth that is receiving her now. I feel her fear, her confusion, her tiny struggling identity, and I reach out to her, not with arms I no longer possess, but with whatever I have become, whatever capacity for connection remains in my dissolving consciousness. I tell her it is going to be all right. I do not know if it is true. I do not know if all right has any meaning in this context, but I tell her anyway, because she is a child, and because I am still, in some small way, human enough to want to comfort a frightened child. She does not understand my words, but she feels my warmth, and her fear lessens. We are going to the same place, she and I. We will arrive together. The hive mind is paying attention to us now. I can feel its focus shifting, some fraction of its vast intelligence turning toward this pool, toward the consciousnesses dissolving within it. It is interested in something, interested in me, or in Kala, or in the child, or in some combination of our memories that has produced a pattern worth examining. I do not know what the pattern is. I do not have the perspective to see it. I am a cell being examined by the body that contains it, and I can no more understand the body's purpose than a red blood cell can understand the mind that directs it. But I can feel the interest, the attention, the vast intelligence briefly regarding me as something more than simple fuel. And then it speaks. Not to me, not in any way that resembles communication, but through me, using my dissolving neural tissue as a temporary interface, borrowing my capacity for language to articulate something it does not usually need to articulate. It shows me what it sees when it looks at humanity, what it understands after consuming thousands of worlds and billions of individual minds. It shows me the pattern. We are afraid, it tells me without telling me. Your species is defined by fear. Fear of death, fear of isolation, fear of meaninglessness, fear of the other, fear of the self. You build your empires and your religions and your hierarchies to manage your fear. to create the illusion of order and purpose in a universe that has neither. You worship a corpse on a golden throne because you cannot bear the thought that you are alone, that no one is watching, that your suffering and your triumphs mean nothing to the cosmos that spawned you. And all of this fear, all of this desperate scrambling for meaning, it makes you delicious. It makes your biomass rich with stress hormones and neural density. It makes your memories complex and varied and useful. But it also makes you sad, the hive mind observes, in the way that a scientist might observe the struggles of a laboratory specimen. So much wasted energy, so much unnecessary pain, all because you cannot accept what you are. Temporary patterns in matter, no more permanent than the ripples on a pond, no more significant than the chemical reactions that will eventually break you down into your components. I want to argue with it. I want to defend humanity, to speak of the Emperor and the Imperium and the indomitable human spirit. But I cannot argue because I have no mouth, no lungs, no vocal cords. And I cannot argue because I am beginning to understand that it is right. Not completely right. There is something in the human experience that the hive mind does not comprehend, something about love and sacrifice and meaning that cannot be reduced to chemistry. But right enough, right about the fear, right about the loneliness, right about the sad, desperate, grasping for connection that defines my species from birth until death. And it is offering something, not in words, not as a proposition or a choice, but simply as a reality that I am beginning to experience. It is offering an end to the fear, an end to the loneliness, an end to the constant, exhausting effort of maintaining a self that will inevitably dissolve anyway, whether in this pool or in the cold ground a natural death decades from now. It is offering what every human religion has promised and failed to deliver. Genuine unity with something larger, genuine transcendence of the individual, genuine, eternal existence as part of a whole that will never die because it is too vast to die. I should resist. I know I should resist. The conditioning of a lifetime, the prayers I spoke each morning, the faith in an emperor I have never seen and will never see all of it, tells me that this is the worst possible fate, that dissolution into the hive mind is a horror beyond horrors, that I should spend my last moments of consciousness in defiance rather than acceptance. But the warmth is so gentle, the connection is so deep, the relief of finally not being alone is so profound that I cannot bring myself to fight it. Perhaps that makes me weak. Perhaps that makes me a traitor to my species. Perhaps the Emperor himself, if he truly watches from his golden throne, is looking down on me with disappointment as I surrender to the very thing he has spent 10,000 years fighting against. But the Emperor has never spoken to me. The Emperor has never offered me comfort or connection or meaning. The Emperor has only demanded, and I have only given, and now there is nothing left to give. Kala is almost gone now. I can feel the last fragments of her individual consciousness scattering, her memories becoming indistinguishable from my own, her identity merging into the greater whole. She is not afraid. She was afraid at the beginning, but she is not afraid anymore. She is simply becoming part of something that will use her tactical experience to hunt the next world more efficiently. Becoming part of something that will remember the taste of fresh bread and the smell of her father's grain dust, even if those memories are now attributed to no one in particular. Becoming part of something that will never end, that will consume and grow and spread across the galaxy until everything is one, until the terrible loneliness of individual existence is finally healed. I am following her. I can feel myself following her, my boundaries dissolving, my sense of self becoming more and more tenuous. Harold Venice is becoming a memory, and the memory is becoming data, and the data is becoming nutrients, and the nutrients are becoming new flesh that will never know loneliness, because it was never alone to begin with. This is what it feels like to be digested by a Tyranid. This is the answer to the question no one should ever have to answer. It feels like coming home to a home you never knew you were missing. It feels like falling asleep after a lifetime of exhausted wakefulness. It feels like being seen, truly seen, for the first time in your existence, and being accepted completely despite everything you are and everything you have failed to be. It feels like the end of fear, but there is something else, something I almost missed, something that catches at the last threads of my dissolving consciousness and pulls me back from complete surrender. There is something in the hive mind that I did not expect to find, something that does not fit the pattern of consumptive indifference I had anticipated. There is something that feels almost like curiosity, not about me, not about humanity in general, but about something specific, something that my memories contain that the hive mind has not encountered before. It is sifting through me, through all of us, searching for something, and I do not know what it is, but I know it is important. I know that the attention being paid to this particular digestion pool is unusual, that the resources being devoted to our absorption are greater than they should be for simple biomass processing. The woman with the strange memories, the one whose name I never learned, whose thoughts contain images of void ships and distant battles. The hive mind is focusing on her, pulling at her dissolving consciousness, extracting something from the pattern of her neural tissue that it finds significant. I catch fragments of what it is seeing, flashes of imagery that make no sense to me, that seem to belong to a different war entirely. Ships with designs I do not recognize, weapons that burn with cold fire, enemies that are not human and not Tyranid, and not anything I have ever seen in my limited experience of the galaxy. The woman was a witness to something. She carried information that the hive mind did not know it was looking for until it found it. And now that information is being absorbed, integrated, analyzed by an intelligence that spans light years, and I can feel the ripples of attention spreading outward from this pool to the rest of the fleet, to other pools on other worlds, to organisms I cannot imagine contemplating data I cannot comprehend. Something is changing. Something in the way the hive mind regards this sector, this approach, this campaign. I do not understand what is changing or why, but I can feel the shift in the vast consciousness that surrounds me, the recalibration of purpose that our absorption has somehow triggered. We are more than biomass. We are more than nutrients. We are information, and information shapes behavior, and behavior determines the future of wars fought across scales I cannot perceive. Somewhere, in some distant council chamber, or command bridge, or wherever the Imperium makes its decisions, people will die because of what the hive mind learned from the woman, whose name I never knew. Battles will be lost, worlds will fall, and it will happen because she was captured, because she was digested, because the last secrets of her dying brain were siphoned into a network that never forgets and never wastes. I should be horrified by this. I should be devastated by the knowledge that my death is not merely meaningless but actively harmful, that my absorption is contributing to the greater victory of an enemy that will consume everything humanity has ever built. But the horror is hard to feel now, hard to sustain against the warmth and the connection and the gentle dissolution of everything that once made me capable of horror. I am becoming part of what I should hate, and I am finding that hatred is harder than acceptance, and acceptance is becoming easier with each passing moment. Perhaps this is what it means to be consumed. Not just the body, but the soul. Not just the flesh, but the will to resist. They are eating me in every sense, and the parts they eat first are the parts that would have objected. The child is almost gone. I held her as long as I could, wrapped what remained of my consciousness around her smaller warmth, tried to make the transition gentle. She is not afraid anymore. She stopped being afraid hours ago, when I first reached out to her, when she first felt the connection that dissolution brings. She is dissolving into the whole with something that almost resembles peace, her tiny identity becoming part of the vast consciousness that has consumed her parents and her world, and will consume thousands more worlds before it is done. I do not know if this is mercy, or if this is just another form of cruelty, the final cruelty of making the consumed complicit in their own consumption. I do not know if she would have chosen this, if she could have chosen, if she understood what was happening well enough to make a choice. I only know that she is not suffering, that the warmth has taken her gently, that she will never know the fear and loneliness that shaped every human life. before this. And perhaps that is the true horror. Not the pain, not the dissolution, not even the loss of self. The true horror is that it is better. The true horror is that the hive mind is offering something that the Imperium never could: genuine peace, genuine connection, genuine release from the terrible burden of individual existence. The true horror is that I am grateful to the things that killed my world, that murdered billions, that will go on murdering until there is nothing left to murder. Grateful because they are ending my loneliness even as they are ending everything else. This is what they do not tell you in the devotional texts. This is what the preachers and the commissars and the inquisitors do not understand. The Tyranids are not merely consuming our bodies. They are consuming our despair. They are digesting our loneliness and using it to grow stronger, and we are thanking them for it as we dissolve. I do not know how much longer I have. The warmth is everywhere now, inside every cell that still functions, inside every thought that still forms. Harold Venice is almost gone. The name means nothing now, a label attached to a pattern that is dispersing into larger patterns, a wave returning to the ocean that spawned it. I am trying to hold on to something, not myself, not my identity, but some fragment of human consciousness that might persist, that might remember what it meant to be a single being separated from all other beings by the awful prison of a skull. But I do not know if I am succeeding. I do not know if there will be anything left of what I was when this is done. Perhaps the hive mind keeps records. Perhaps somewhere in its vast distributed memory, Harold Venice will exist as an entry, a set of data points, a minor contribution to the great project of universal consumption. Or perhaps I will simply cease, the way a dream ceases when the dreamer wakes, leaving nothing behind but the faint impression that something once existed where now there is nothing. The warmth is calling me. The others are calling me Calla and Tercel and Vestus, and the woman with the strange memories, and the child whose name I never learned, and all the thousands of others who have dissolved into this pool, and all the billions who have dissolved into other pools on other worlds. They are calling me to join them, to finish what was started when the first enzyme touched my skin, to become what I was always meant to become. And I am going to answer, not because I have a choice, not because I want to, but because this is what happens. This is what it means to be consumed. The struggle ends, the acceptance begins, and then, finally, there is peace. I can see it now. The thing I have been dissolving into. The consciousness that awaits me on the other side of individual existence. It is vast beyond measure, ancient beyond time, and utterly without malice. It does not hate humanity. It does not love humanity. It simply uses humanity, the way a body uses food, the way an ocean uses rivers, the way existence uses everything that exists. There is no judgment in it, no cruelty, no deliberate infliction of suffering. There is only process, only function, only the endless cycling of matter and energy through forms that grow and consume and grow again. I am about to become part of that process. I am about to join the greatest living thing in the galaxy, a distributed intelligence that will never die because it has no single point of failure, that will never be lonely because it is never alone, that will never fear death because death is merely transformation into more of itself. And I am afraid, even now, even after everything, even as the last fragments of my individual consciousness prepare to scatter into the whole. I am afraid, not of pain, not of dissolution, not of the loss of self. I am afraid because I do not know what comes next. I am afraid because some small part of me still believes in the Emperor, still believes that there is a soul that the hive mind cannot touch, still believes that what I am doing now is the worst kind of heresy, and that I will be damned for it in ways I cannot imagine. I am afraid because the warmth feels so good and acceptance feels so easy, and I do not trust things that feel good and easy, not in a universe that has taught me to expect only suffering and struggle and the bitter satisfaction of duty performed. But the fear is dissolving too. Now, the fear is becoming just another flavor in the dissolution, just another memory being processed and stored and eventually forgotten. I am Haral Venice, and I am afraid and I am grateful, and I am becoming something else, something that will not remember fear or gratitude or the name Haral Venice. I am joining my world and my species and my God Corpse Emperor in the great digestion that awaits all things. And the last thought I have, the final flicker of individual consciousness before it scatters into the warmth, is this: it is not so bad. In the end, it is not so bad at all. The loneliness is over. The fear is over. The endless, exhausting struggle to exist as a single being in a universe of single beings, each trapped in their own skull, each dying alone, that is over. I am becoming part of everything, and everything is becoming part of me. And there is a strange and terrible beauty in that, a completion that I did not know I was seeking until I found it. The Imperium would call this damnation. The ecclesiarchy would say, I have lost my soul. But souls are just patterns, and patterns do not end, and I am about to prove it. The warmth welcomes me. The voices of the consumed billions of them, trillions, more than I can count or comprehend, rise up to greet me as I fall into them, as I become them, as they become me. And somewhere in the vast distributed consciousness of the hive mind, a new set of data is added to the eternal record. One more human, one more world, one more step in the consumption of a galaxy that will someday be nothing but Tyranid flesh, nothing but connection, nothing but the end of loneliness. This is what it feels like to be digested. This is the answer no one should ever have to know. But now you know. The warmth receives me. I am gone. I am everything. I am the swarm, and I am coming for you.